Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Legal Ease, the show that converts legal jargon into legal ease. Tonight, we hope to warm you up on this extremely cold night with some information about the law, generally speaking, what the public wants to know. So this show tonight is really focused by and large on you, the viewer. We've got a lot of requests by email and phone call, as well as on Twitter, from our viewers who have requested to know something about a specific highlight or something that they've heard in the media, in the news. Unfortunately, because there's so many of it, we can't hold a specific show only on that topic. So what we've decided to do tonight, we've decided to get an expert attorney, 24 years in the game, on our show tonight to help us through a few of the highlighted or what we believe to be the most important issues that have come up in the media, in the newspapers, on your TV screens over the past few weeks, and look at the legal application of that and how it applies to you, the man in the street. To help us tonight, we have an attorney, 24 years attorney, or at least been attorney for 24 years. He's certainly a little bit older than that, although he doesn't look it. Mr. Taahir Mitha from T.Mitha Attorneys in Mayfair, Johannesburg. Mr. Mitha is a specialist in various fields of the law. You will have remembered Mr. Mitha from our show some time back, where he talked to us about criminal law, criminal procedure, the criminal process in South African law, with regards to prosecutors, judges, and things of that nature. But Mr. Mitha is also a specialist in other areas of the law. For example, he does a lot of civil work. He deals with a lot of estate matters, family matters. So tonight we request that the phone lines will be open from the beginning of the show, which will be essentially as soon as my introduction is finished, and you can then phone in and ask any question you like regarding the general aspects of the law or the law generally, or anything that you may have heard or read in the news and in the media over the past few weeks that you would like to know or have an question answered on. Now, I have taken 5 specific highlights out of the law, which I'll talk to you guys about right now, which I think are the most important aspects and where there's a legal application there that have come up in the media over the past few weeks. And we will talk on that and discuss that, my guest and myself. And if there's anything that you would like to ask on that, please feel free to tweet or to call in. The lines are open. Essentially, the number to dial 011 086 7701 or 2 or 3. As always, it is at the bottom of your screen. Let's turn now and say welcome and assalamu alaikum to Mr. Taahir Mitha. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Mitha.
Alaikum salam.
Jazakallah again for joining us in the show. It's always a treat and a pleasure and an honor to host guests like yourself, who are so learned in the law, and we have viewers who are dying to ask questions. And the aim of the show, as you obviously know, is to really educate those viewers at home so that they don't have to sort of pick up a phone and call an attorney just to ask a simple question, which hopefully we'll be able to answer tonight.
Inshallah, we'll try our level best to assist whoever needs some help, inshallah.
Ameen, Jazakallah. Mr. Mitha, and obviously Mr. Mitha's details appear at the bottom of the screen as well. So if there's any other questions that aren't answered tonight, please feel free to call him by email or telephone, or just pop into his offices in Mayfair. His doors are always open, and I promise you, you will really have to look very hard to find a better attorney in Johannesburg. Mr. Mitha, you're a criminal specialist. As I mentioned, you're also a specialist in other aspects of the law. Just talk to us quickly about criminal law in South Africa at this point in time. How are we looking? Are things changing for the better insofar as the process is concerned?
Yes, crime has spiked over a few years, and with that, certain laws were changed to make provision. One example I'll give you is the bail. Previously, one could apply for bail even for murder or hijacking or robbery, and at night one could do an after-hour bail application. Now that has changed. They've done away with after-hour bail applications. Not only did they do away with after-hour bail applications, they categorize them in various schedules, and the most serious schedules will be the Schedule 6, 5, 4, as you get down to the common petty crimes like shoplifting and stuff like that.
Which is your Schedule 1s and all.
That's correct, yeah. And then what happens is the very minor offenses, they've given police authority to give police bail or release people on warning at police stations. So that brings the workload from the court perspective to a minimum, so that it doesn't clutter the court roll. So there has been changes, and they made it quite difficult in the most serious types of offences to apply for bail. So that's one aspect, there are other developments in other aspects of the criminal law as well, with regard to the appeal and doing away with the death sentence, and increasing certain sentences mandatory for very serious offences. Like you'll have a minimum sentence where life imprisonment is the day what magistrates and judges will have to look at, and there is definitely change as the days are going by. Okay. To meet the requirements of what's happening out there.
That's good to hear. And you've been an attorney for 24 years, so you practiced law essentially pre-democracy and now subsequent to democracy. How do you find the changes? We've just gone through an election now. The ruling party, the ANC, again elected. They were instrumental in the transformation years. How do you find that the differences between pre-democratic practicing of criminal law and now post to that?
See, from an attorney's perspective, initially one would have found that money was made available via the legal aid board.
Right.
They would have a whole lot of attorneys that were on the panel, and they were then given work from the court, to assist criminals on a certain basis that they qualified for. And as the years went by, what has happened is that they introduced the Public Defender's Office, where they work in with the legal aid board, and they then go to court and sit in court. They then take on matters. So you will find that I would even estimate as close to, as you could say, about 90% of all criminal work now are done by the public defenders. They mostly located in most of the courts. So if people cannot afford an attorney, they will then take down the details, assess them, and assist them for free.
Okay.
And I'll just add another aspect to that. It opened up also doors for young attorneys who cannot find work and articles. The public defender's offices normally take them on, train them, and from there they start. They move on from the district court up to the regional court, then to the high court, and they get a lot of criminal experience. And then obviously, if they don't want to pursue their career, they get into the post of public defenders. From there to they get into the post of public prosecutors, and from there they can also become magistrates, judges, and advocates as well.
Okay, so and what is the quality of the public defenders at the moment? I mean, the legal aid attorneys, do you finding them that they're competent?
Yes, see, they are paid by the state. They work for the state. They are normally trained in universities. They are qualified with proper degrees, and they like any other lawyer, but they take up positions in the public defense, and they specialize in criminal work. Right. And as their experience grows, you will find that they become quite good, and they can take on very complicated matters as well. I've dealt with a few of them, and I find them to be very competent as well.
Okay. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, the phone lines are open already from now. A number to dial obviously appears at the bottom of the screen. And there are 5 specific things which I've looked at, taken out of the media, which I think are the most important aspects that have come out in the news lately, and where there is a legal application and where it obviously applies to our viewers. Those specifically are what has just now been stated about the Muslim marriages. And we'll discuss what is the effect on Muslim marriages, what is the effect of Muslims about the Muslim marriages, and then there's another 4. One would be Boko Haram, the media aspect, the media law aspect of that. Sanral, can they pull us over? The other one is the traffic fines issues, being arrested for traffic fines, and lastly there's a Gupta investigation with the public protector. We've got a caller online. Let's take a call quickly, Mr. Mitha, and then we'll hopefully get into our discussion very shortly. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller.
Wa alaikum salam. Sheikh, I want to ask something.
Yes, brother.
Yeah, tell me, like this is a family matter, ne?
Yes.
It's a family matter. What I want to ask.
Yes, go ahead.
About. Yeah. For instance, if at all you stay in a house, ne? And then it's like maybe your father divorces your mother, and then someone comes in the very same house, the other wife, what happened to the people who were in that house?
Is that the end of the question?
Sorry?
Is that the end of your question? So what you're asking basically is what happens to the person who's replaced by the new wife, for example? Is that what you're asking?
It's like what I'm trying to get right here. And it's like what happened to the house? Do the children of the first wife have a share on their father? Maybe if the father dies or so.
Okay. There's a few aspects to that question, brother. So what we'll do is myself and my guest will try and answer that whilst you're off air. But Jazakallah for the question. Just stay tuned to the show and we're going to be answering your question right now. Jazakallah. Okay, Mr. Mitha, I don't know if you heard the crux of the question.
It's a very vague question, but we'll try and assist the caller. From what I gather from his question is that he is uncertain as to what the children's position will be in the event of the father's death. Okay. He's more concerned that the new mother or the father's new wife, from what I see, might evict them.
Right.
Now, what happens here is if there is a will and if the father is not married, we'll take that scenario, to his other wife legally.
Legally. And when we say legal, we're talking common law, civil
That's correct, right? Yes. Then, in terms of the will, that will stand.
Right.
Otherwise, what will happen is that the children will inherit on his death,
right,
irrespective,
right,
in terms of the common law as well,
right,
and that will determine how many children there are and what the assets are. So not only the house, but the assets and the money in the bank and whatever the assets are, and obviously the liabilities will be deducted.
And let's look at the issue of eviction. So it appears, if we're correct, that he's afraid that they will now be removed from the home. Let's look at that issue. If the husband, if the wife, the father is in fact still there, if the father owned the property, registered in his name, there is no way that any person coming into that home can evict him under any circumstances, unless, of course, that that property was registered into her name.
Yes,
even if she was effectively then married to the father.
Yeah. See, if she was married, obviously, and if he leaves a will bequeathing the house to her.
Let's assume he's alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. While he's alive, then obviously that becomes a civil matter between the parties.
Yeah.
Whether if the children are still dependent on him, then obviously there is an obligation on a father to look after his children.
Yes,
so that will be dealt with separately.
And obviously it depends on the age of the children.
Precisely. See, the age itself is not the real criteria. The criteria will be if they are self-sufficient.
Yes.
And they don't need to be maintained and looked after.
Yes.
That would be the most appropriate angle to look at.
Okay.
As far as that is concerned.
So, brother, if you understand the answer, I think you're safe for now. But definitely get information. Contact Mr. Mitha if you require. His email address does appear at the bottom of the screen for further enlightenment insofar as what it is you have to do if there is in fact a problem that has been created. Mr. Mitha should be able to assist you taking from there. Let's turn now to the first issue, the first highlighted media report. We were talking about, and it's also quite relevant to the question, funny enough, but we're talking Muslim marriages. Twitter has been going crazy. People are asking me, what about Muslim marriages? What has the law on Muslim marriages changed? And if it has in fact changed, how does it affect Muslims getting married nowadays? Let's just start quickly. There's a difference between a civil marriage, an Islamic marriage, and a customary marriage.
That's correct.
Can we talk about that quickly?
Yes. Okay. See, from an Islamic point of view, customary marriage will deal with mostly the black population.
Right.
There, the law has identified certain criteria with regard to lobola and issues to that nature.
Right.
So we will exclude that for the time being.
Okay.
And we'll
but that is effectively registered. That is
it is very
enshrined in our law.
Yes.
And in fact, a customary marriage is a lawful, legally binding marriage in South Africa.
Precisely, right. And is recognized.
And recognized. That's important.
Now, from the Islamic point of view, we must be very careful. The law has went a further step, and what has done is that it has now appointed imams, selected imams who are now qualified to solemnize a marriage.
Right.
And that is very important. You get those imams that are not certified as marriage officers, They will marry you, and you will be married according to Islamic.
I'm going to ask you to hold on that point. Don't forget what you were saying. We're just going to take this quick call because it might be in line with that and might be able to extend that conversation very quickly. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller. You may go ahead.
Wa alaikum salam. I need advice on, I'm working for a company that I'm working for 4 years.
Ji.
And I've been allowed time off to go to Jumu'ah every Friday. Now what has happened, I have an acting manager that has now been threatening me with disciplinary warnings that I'm no longer allowed to go to Jumu'ah anymore on a Friday. And it's only been applicable to me, the only Muslim. The other Muslims can go. And I'd like to know, how do I go about this? Because if I do go, they insist I need to put in 1 day's leave.
Okay. Jazakallah, sister. I'll answer your question right away. Jazakallah for the question. Mr. Mitha, fortunately we do some labor law, so we'll be able to answer that question.
Yes.
And what's very important about that is that, fortunately, the sister helped us out by saying that
she's been discriminated against.
Exactly, and in fact, there's a law, the rule that's inconsistent.
That's
certain other Muslims are permitted to leave. She has to, in fact, put in leave for that period of time.
They're targeting her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from that point of view, you're quite okay with the label law. I know you're specialist in that field.
Yeah, so let's have a quick discussion. So effectively, her remedy there is quite simple. She is now being victimized. Because there is a law there's a rule that's in place, and that rule is being applied inconsistently in the workplace. Now, there's plenty of case law on this issue. A rule that is in place within the workplace must be applied consistently amongst employees. Failure to apply that rule consistently amounts to victimization, and that can also amount to what is called an unfair labor practice.
Precisely.
Right. Now, let's go a little bit further. The reason as to why he is preventing our sister from then leaving to go to Jummah Namaz. Now, there could be a potential racial or some other discriminatory effect to it. It might be because she's a female, it might be just because she's Muslim. If that is in fact the case, that even escalates that discrimination, that unfair labor practice, and in fact, jurisdiction of the CCMA then falls away, and you're entitled to go directly to the labor court on an issue of that nature.
That's correct. Yes.
Remember that your remedy here, we're always looking at a constructive, what we're looking at is unfair dismissal. Now understand that when we talk about unfair dismissal, the law, the Labor Relations Act says that first of all, the employee has to prove that it was in the first place a dismissal, and in the second place that the dismissal was unfair.
That's correct.
Okay?
Yes.
Or should I say that the employer has to prove that it was in fact a fair dismissal. Now in the case of constructive dismissal, if the circumstances or your conditions are so unbearable that you can no longer tolerate it, then you can resign and say, I'm now resigning because I cannot continue in this circumstance or in this workplace anymore or in this environment, and then you will refer the matter to the CCMA for an unfair dismissal. Remember that there is no obligation on the employer to permit you any sort of religious relief or leave. We are fortunate in this country that all our employers understand that with transformation, we have gotten to a stage where religious tolerance is
essential
and is practiced far and wide in all our the corporate companies. So I think you should take this up with your direct line manager. If you are unsuccessful, I would suggest you put in a grievance with a senior above your manager and take it to him. If you're unsuccessful there and you're still unable to obtain the leave you require, which is I think 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, which is in any event your lunchtime, and you're entitled to lunch in accordance with basic conditions of employment as well as the Employment Equity Act. If you're not getting any luck there, please contact an attorney. You may contact myself, Mr. Mitha, or any of the other attorneys from the Muslim Lawyers Association or in Johannesburg, and I'm pretty certain that you'll be able to find some sort of relief, inshallah.
But the important thing here is that she must put it in writing.
Absolutely.
She must put it in writing. So you can highlight it, because from what I hear, by them giving her these warning letters, they're basically setting her up, you know, and basically if she infringes it once or twice and thrice, and then it says here, we've given you 3 warnings and we're entitled now to dismiss you.
Yeah.
So she must bring it up quickly and attend to it in writing, so that they know that these warning letters that are coming your way are also violating your rights. And they want to use it as in a very subtle way to put pressure on you.
Okay. Jazakallah for that, Mr. Mitha. I can hear the phones are ringing off the hook. Before we take another call, can I please go to a very quick commercial break and satisfy our sponsors? We'll be back very shortly. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah for staying tuned. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Legal Ease. We're talking to Taahir Mitha, an attorney general specialist attorney in South Africa, 24 years in the game, and we are taking calls. To remind you, the phone lines are open. We're also taking tweets, and the Twitter handle is @ITV on Legal at ITV Legal Ease. Or at Bravia John, which is my personal handle. You're permissible to tweet on either one of those if there's any questions that you'd like. There's a call online, Mr. Mitha. We're going to get back to the Muslim marriages in a second. Let's quickly take this call and we'll come back to that. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ji, brother.
My name is Mohammed. I wanted to ask the question that when a father has a child and he gets married to the other wife, and the first wife, the mother of the first child, passes away, what are the laws concerning the firstborn, the child, when the second mother takes on the household of the father, if they were married?
Right. So what are you asking? Is it what happens to the first child, the child born of the first marriage? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, about the inheritance of the firstborn.
Or inheritance from a property point of view, like in terms of money and things of that nature.
Yeah, in terms of property.
Okay. All right. Thank you, brother. We'll answer your call.
Right.
We'll answer your question. Jazakallah for the question. Ms. Mitha, again.
Okay, a widely thrown question, yeah?
Yeah.
But we'll try and assist him and try and see if we can analyze what he says. Basically, from what I gather from his question is that he got married again. His first wife died, and from that first marriage, he had one child.
Yes.
Now, I would assume that when he's talking about inheritance, similar to the previous question, caller we had, what is the position of the child? Now, if he was married to the first wife in community of property, and automatically the child will inherit from the mother,
Yes.
a share as well as the father.
Absolutely.
If the father dies. So it's more an inheritance there. The law is very simple. Even if they don't, both of them pass away and there's no will, the child will inherit a portion from him and a portion from the mother.
From the mother who passed away.
Right. Now, with regard to the new wife, I heard him saying that he married her.
Right.
Now, what she will inherit is half of his share.
Yes.
So
And depending obviously how
they were married. That's basically what will happen.
Brilliant. I think that sums it up quite nicely. We have another call on the line, Mr. Mitha. Let's take this call. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, brother.
I'm fine. I just want to ask you, I'm working as a butler,
Right.
and then my problem is my boss is always asking me, we sign a contract, and after that contract you signed, he said, he's got a problem because I must pay this money for SARS or something like that.
Okay.
And then now he want to have me to sign another new contract. So I don't know whether is it good or is it bad. I don't know. Can one job we have a two contract because of you want to run away from SARS. I don't know, is it possible or what?
Okay.
Okay. Jazakallah. Thank you, caller. We'll answer that question offline. Okay.
I think basically what he must do is he must take these contracts, consult a labor specialist like you, and take advice on that. It's very difficult for us to advise him because we don't know the contents and intention of his employer.
Let's look at the SARS issue very quickly. It sounds to me very, very much like the employer is perhaps dealing with the UIF or the PAYE issue, or sorry, not PAYE, it's employees tax.
That's correct.
So if I understand the question correctly, is potentially the employer, what he's done is perhaps maybe he didn't register the first contract, or registered the first contract, hadn't paid the taxes for the employee's salary, or potentially didn't register the employee for UIF and tax and things of that nature. Now he's getting a backlash from SARS and then saying, well, hold on a second, he's actually only been employed from a week ago or a month ago as opposed to 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I think it's important that
he consult a labor
specialist, but also that he go down to SARS, to go down to the South African Revenue Services with your ID number, check if you were registered for UIF and for PAYE, if your salary is within the taxable bracket. That's also very important.
Yes.
and I think make sure that you were registered and that your taxes have been paid if you were employed previously, and as well as with the current employer that you're employed with, just to make sure that everything is in order, because when you leave there, if there is a severe tax bill or a SARS bill, they'll come looking for you, not for the employer.
That's correct, yes.
Right?
Yeah, it has a definite implication at the end of it.
Against him.
Yeah.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, caller. We're standing by to take your call.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Recently, the members of Sanral have been pulling vehicles and motorists over on the highways and demanding their ID numbers and specific details with regard to non-payment of e-tolls. I just wanted to know what the legality on such a thing was.
Jazakallah, sister, for the call. Thank you. It's one of the issues that we highlighted actually to discuss on the show. So thank you. Let's get our teeth into that one, Mr. Mitha,
yes.
and hold the calls, because I really like to hear from you what you think about this. Because if they pull me over, you can better be sure that they're going to have something solid. Otherwise, I'm not stopping. So.
It is definitely a hot issue in the last few days.
Right.
They're using their bullying tactics. They have a certain amount of muscle in such. But the way they in the form of
Metro cops.
You see, Metro cops, the way I understand it, subcontracted to Sandra. So basically, they're doing the dirty work.
Right.
But generally, they're supposed to ask you with regard to your license and check whether your number plate corresponds with the car.
Right.
That you're driving, because what happens is, the way I understand it and the way it is now, it comes across in the media, is that a lot of people are using false number plates on their vehicles, and that's what they want to cut around, because if you go in with a false number plate, then your billed. That means somebody else is billed for a vehicle that you are driving.
Correct.
You know, to put it very simply.
Right.
So I think it's very important to understand what they're asking for and what are they looking for.
Well, let's unpack this just very quickly from the foundation stages. So we're talking about essentially at that moment in time. In fact, since e-tolls is so new, it is a civil claim. It's not statutory yet.
Yes. See, with regard to the infringement, I don't think that is relevant right now. What the lady is asking us is that whether the police officers are acting within their rights. What I heard over the radio in recent days is that they're intimidating people.
Right.
Now, intimidation, that is wrong. Because they don't have the authority to do that. But to verify certain information, I think they're within their rights. So in order to check whether...
But in terms of what mandate, I mean, I'm confused as to what empowers them to stop you, basically breach your constitutional rights to free travel and free movement, to stop you and say, well, hold on a second, I'm holding you over. And I'm hearing stories that they're asking people, give me 2,000 rand and I'll cancel your bill of 8 or 9 grand. I mean, that's not certainly lawful at all.
That's why I say, when I meant intimidating and asking for bribes, that in itself, any person will tell you that, you know what, they are exceeding their bounds and they're basically going on the wrong side of the road. So if they are verifying certain information, from what I understood, they are using certain police enforcement. That means police are there to verify this information. If you are putting a wrong number plate and your discs are wrong, then obviously you're infringing the law itself.
Okay, so is it, you think is that what they're trying to inspect?
That's what I understood, you know, from what they are saying.
Okay.
But if they are exceeding that limit, you know, where they go and ask for bribes and intimidate you and
to pay your bills
and stuff like that, I don't think that will be rightful, and you will be able to take them up criminally for that.
So our expert says, in a nutshell, if they are checking on validities of driver's licenses and registration numbers and things of that nature, matching of vehicles to registration, that is in order. We can accept and we can stand for that. But where it goes beyond that and the enforcement of a collection of an outstanding invoice for Sandra, that the answer is emphatic no. Definitely. Not allowed and not permitted and will not stand for. Let's see what our next caller has to say. Jazakallah for that answer, Mr. Mitha. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller.
Hello.
Jake, can you hear us?
Yeah, can I speak now?
Yes, you can. Brother, if I can ask you to just turn your TV down so that we can hear you, because we can hear the TV in the back as well.
Thanks, man. You're speaking to Nishan.
Yes,
I was employed at this restaurant, and I worked there for about 7 months. So in the past 3 months, the owner of the restaurant hasn't paid my salary, so I decided to leave work because he promised.
I think we lost.
So the caller got dropped. Okay, while we're waiting for him to redial, let's quickly get back to the Muslim marriages. I'm dying to hear from you, Mr. Mitha, on that issue.
Yeah.
So we were talking about
the marriage officers.
The marriage officers.
Yes, and let's assume that you want to now get married, but you want to get married exclusively Islamically.
Right.
Then you can go to any imam who solemnizes his marriage, and you can get married there and perform the nikah.
Right.
But if you want that marriage to be recognized in law,
in civil law, common law.
That's correct. Then you'll approach an imam who has been accredited and who is certified to be a marriage officer. Now, this is very important for the listeners to understand, that when you approach such an imam, there are certain requirements that you have to take with him and pay him a certain amount of fees and take your identification documents and your photos and stuff like that. But you got to understand which marital regime you intend pursuing. You can get married in community of property with him, or
it's
you can
the default, huh?
That's right. Or you can get married by anti-nuptial contract.
Right.
Now, if you get married or you want to get married by anti-nuptial contract, you've got to decide whether it's with or without accrual. Now, what I can advise you is this, that you must, if you want to get married by anti-nuptial contract, you must approach an attorney, preferably a notary, who can then drop the necessary notarial documents for that to take place. And then he'll give you a letter. You can then take it to the imam, and he will then solemnize your marriage according to your preference now.
Now, what's important there is, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is that when you go to an imam, and understand that imams have been registered as marriage officers since the beginning of time. I mean, it's nothing, that's not incredibly new. But those imams who weren't previously registered as marriage officers have now taken those exams, have passed with flying colors, and are now sort of registered as marriage officers. So when you go to an imam with the intention of getting married in accordance with the Sharia, you can also now, and this is important, and I think the key word here is you can also. You don't have to, but you can also get married in accordance with civil law, because that same imam who will register your Sharia marriage will then also register your common law marriage.
That's correct.
Is that correct? And I think, am I right in saying that the key word here is that you're not obligated?
Yes, you got to mention to the imam, or you and your spouse decide how you want your marriage to be solemnized, and then you can make those preferences. So 1, you can get married Islamically, 2, in community of property and Islamically, and 3, Islamically and in community of property.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay, and a bit of advice here.
By anti-nuptial contract, sorry.
By anti-nuptial contract. A bit of advice, I would advise that when seeking counsel on this, look to an attorney like Mr. Mitha, who is au fait both with the Sharia, being a Muslim, as well as the common law principles of marriage, being an attorney for 24 years. There are other attorneys like Mr. Mitha who have an understanding of it, who have designed ANCs which are potentially in accordance with the Sharia, or at least as far as possible.
Close as possible.
And I think that's important. A lot of our Muslim brothers and sisters are saying we don't want to get married with ANC because it's anti-Sharia. And what I'm saying is that it's not completely true. Seek out an expert, someone like Mr. Mitha, who can assist you with solemnizing or getting registered within a matrimonial regime that suits your needs, but is also compliant with the Sharia, inshallah.
Inshallah.
We've got another call on the line, Mr. Mitha. Let's take this caller. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Jee, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
I'm calling from Cape Town. I would just like to know, this is an inheritance issue.
Right.
My father-in-law has passed on about a year ago. He left behind 2 sons and 2 daughters. The 2 sons are married with 2 children each. Now the problem is my mother-in-law and the 2 daughters say that he did not leave a will behind. Anyway, now the matter has been taken. What they did was they told the 2 sons that they have to sign over their shares to the 2 daughters, which wasn't a problem. Then but they were forced to sign it. So they did, and now about 9 months later, they discovered that my husband and I were married in community of property. So now they want my signature. Now I am being forced to sign a document, which I feel is not right, and I don't want to do it. What are my rights where this is concerned?
Okay.
Jazakallah, sister, for the question.
The situation is very simple. When your father-in-law passed away, we will assume from what you told us that he was married to your mother-in-law in community of property. Now, and there's no will, and that would be the normal scenario that plays itself out. Now, in that event, then all 4 of the children will inherit half of the estate, because the mother will inherit half of the estate because she's married in community property.
Correct.
And the 4 children, together with the mother, will inherit the other half. The mother will inherit from her husband's estate a sum of 125,000 rand or a child share, whichever is greater. The balance must be divided amongst the 4 children. Now, your husband signed off his share, and you are married in community property. That's why they're asking you to sign off your half share in your marriage over to them, and you're not actually forced to do so
under any obligation.
Under any obligation, yes.
So would in that regard,
yes, she doesn't have to sign it, and she'll inherit whatever she's entitled to from that particular estate
and
in proportion to her estate. So if her husband, the way I understand it, entered into a redistribution agreement with the rest of the family, whereby he ceded his rights, as well as your brother-in-law ceded his rights towards the mother and the 2 sisters. That's basically what happened, because they signed an agreement.
And definitely, I think, take the document over to somebody who's in the know.
Precisely. In fact, you don't even have to go to an attorney. If they put pressure on you, find out from the master's office, you give them the various details and express your concern, and they will assist you with that, so that that your share in that particular estate can be secured.
Brilliant. Jazakallah for that, Mr. Mitha. We're going to take another very quick ad break. Jazakallah, sister. Inshallah, that answered your question. We're going to take another ad break. As soon as we come back, we'll finish up with, inshallah, the points we wanted to mention, and take some more of your calls and tweets. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. We'll see you shortly. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back again to Legal Ease. I'm so grateful for the interest in the show tonight, and it's obvious that we've really hit a nerve, and that nerve is that there are a lot of questions that are unanswered out there, Mr. Mitha, and I'm very glad that we're able to assist people, the ones who are calling and tweeting, and we have a couple of tweets which inshallah we'll get to now. And we're able to assist our viewers out there, because that's the aim of the show.
Very true.
We strive to be this educational channel, and we try to empower our people and anybody else who's watching. So Jazakallah for the interest, and stay tuned and keep on watching. Let's get on to the second highlight of the show that we were talking about, and it's not. We talked about Sandal. We dealt with the Muslim marriages. Very quickly, the traffic fines issue. It's similar to the Sandal issue, but now we're talking about a statutory offence. Can you take us through the process there and the legalities or illegalities of?
Yes. What I would advise the viewers to take very important notice of is, as soon as you buy a motor vehicle, you register it into your name.
Right.
From the time the vehicle is registered on your name, make sure the addresses that you furnish, where you receive traffic fines and all those related notices, must be addresses and information that will make you aware of all this that becomes available. Furthermore, when you sell your vehicle, it's important for you to make sure that the vehicle is deregistered from your name.
Right.
If you, for example, refuse to check on that, there might come a time where whoever has that vehicle with him infringes the law. You won't know about it, and tickets will start building up. One day when you're stopped at a road, where they have a trap, and they check up, and you find that there might be warrants out, then you will have a problem. And they generally have a tendency of doing it on a Friday night, knowing that you will sit over a weekend and you will really stress out and you will basically want to pay for something that you never even do wrong.
Very quickly, the purpose of that arrest, I mean, there's so much we can discuss on this, and we've actually got a caller waiting, but just very quickly, the purpose of that arrest, am I not correct in saying that when a warrant is issued, it's with the sole purpose of securing your attendance
in court
for purposes of that infringement?
Correct.
And that infringement, and that's only where there's an infringement where it's above a certain threshold where a warrant of arrest has now been issued.
And authorized.
Sorry?
Issued and authorized.
Issued and authorized,
That's
absolutely.
correct, yes.
Now, if I get stopped at a at a roadblock, and the guy says, well, hold on a second, I'll go and get the warrant right now. I mean, is that permissible?
It will be very difficult. That's why I say the practical scenario is this. They are going to sit there and trap as many people as they can.
Right.
And you'll be sitting at the back of that vehicle. And it will become embarrassing.
Yeah.
So the onus is on the listener to take cognizance of that. Make sure you have a clean slate, and from time to time, make sure you go onto the websites and check if you don't have outstanding tickets and warrants out. And
which are warrants specifically?
Precisely, even tickets.
Yeah.
Because what happens now, previously you could go to a traffic office and ask them to reduce the fine, and you can speak to them and they'll assist you by reducing it.
Yes.
Now that process has changed.
Oh, really?
You go to make written representation, there's an administrative fee. You go to, if you're in Johannesburg, the representation is sent to Pretoria, and there's a whole lot of other rigmarole that must be attended to. So rather take the onus on yourself to make sure that you have your slate is clean.
Inshallah. We've got a call on the line and we've got to wrap up the show. So let's take this last caller. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, caller. You may go ahead.
Walaikum salam. I hope you can help me. I wanted to find out
Inshallah.
to evict tenants. Is there a standard fee which attorneys charge?
Is that correct?
Okay. With regard to an eviction, there cannot be a standard fee because each scenario presents its own problems, and each attorney will look at the situation and determine and take instructions on whether to proceed in the High Court, and even there, whether they're going to proceed with summons or with an application. Similarly, whether you'll move in the matter in the magistrate's court, and also there by summons or by application. So the scenario will differ from each scenario and from each attorney himself. You know, one attorney will say, see, let's do this, let's go to the High Court, we'll pay a bit of money, we put the tenant under stress because he cannot afford counsel's fees in the High Court, and it will be preferable that we go that way and we'll know we'll get a judgment quickly. You know, so it's very difficult to tell you that, you know, there's a set fee for a particular
but there's a set process. So
the process is more or less defined. But the cost will differ. You know, it will also depend. Sometimes you evict somebody from a building and there's a whole lot of people involved. You have to employ the red ends and get the sheriff involved. It's not as straightforward as one would want in each scenario. So you've got to determine what the problem is and how you deal with a person.
Kola, also on that note, brother, it's also important to look at the length of stay that the tenants have been there. But on this specific issue, you know, take a little bit of time. If the property is valuable and they've been staying there without paying rental for a substantial period of time, and you're now losing income or losing a profit on that property, I would suggest you spend a little bit of money, go and see an attorney like Mr. Mitha, show him the lease agreement if there is such a lease agreement, and look at the best and quickest and most cost-effective way to deal with the situation before it becomes a massive problem, inshallah.
Precisely.
Hopefully that answered your question. Jazakallah for the call. We're going to be wrapping up the show now, Mr. Mitha. I don't know if you believe it, but we've actually reached the end of the show.
Almost,
We've got, I think, less than 2 minutes to go before our producers start cutting us off at the neck. Inshallah, that won't happen. But we've really covered some issues which a lot of people have, as I mentioned, burning questions about. We've looked at We've looked at the Muslim marriages. Alhamdulillah, we got to the end of that. We've looked at Sandra. We've looked at traffic violations. These are the things that affect people on a daily basis. As I say in the show all the time, the law is something that in every facet of life you will encounter the law. We talked about this when I interviewed Mr. Mitha the first time on the criminal process. Somebody could knock on your door and all of a sudden you're in the back of a van and you don't know what to do. You could be the victim of a landlord who's trying to evict you unlawfully. It could be anything of that. And inshallah, we hope that we continue to educate you on the show and to what your rights are. So the motto of the show is always going to be, know your rights. And if you don't know them, make sure that you have someone who does. Someone like Mr. Mitha or any of the other attorneys in the Muslim Lawyers Association or any attorney in Johannesburg that you might prefer. Contact the Law Society, get hold of the Law Society, see a list of attorneys who deal with a specific area of law that you are involved in or that you need assistance with. And educate yourselves also. You know, look at the internet, research, listen to the show. Legalese is very, very informative. It really is. You're getting expensive advice for free, or for the subscription of your DSTV subscription, whatever that is nowadays. So inshallah we've helped you, and inshallah we hope to help you even more going forward in the future. We promise to bring you more programming that is informative and educational. And we hope that you stay with us in the future as you have been. Jazakallah for your interest for tonight's show. Jazakallah for all your questions. And more importantly, Jazakallah to our guest, Mr. Mitha. You've been excellent as usual. And inshallah you'll be able to help a lot of those callers that come through to you in the next couple of weeks.
Inshallah.
This is Legal Ease, the show that converts legal jargon into legalese. Jazakumullah khairan for staying with us. Assalamu alaikum. We will see you next week Thursday, same time, same place. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.